Okay, so the important thing is before we start to go in the server, in the file storage, the art and design server, under the faculty, under Enrica Lovaglio, under public, under handout, 182 handout, 182 color correct lecture 1. I want you to download that to your desktop. And I want you to download also the one just above that is called __ vector mask. Today we're going to focus on vector and color correcting. So right here. Also, I emailed you an extra file that I wanted you to have, and it wasn't in these two folders. And if we launch Photoshop, you can see it right away. There it is. Is the text art with in a flattened format. Means I cannot see the text tool or anything. I just see a background with a gradient in the back and art in the front, again though with a gradient to fill it. So the very first question I want to ask you is, how would you select this? If I was to tell you, I would like you to select those letters, those three letters, A, R, and T, so that they can be in the layers in separate layers. So let's say right now you have just a background layer. Imagine you have a layer on top that contains the A, another one on top containing the R, and another one on top containing the T, each one filled with a bright color. So what I want you to really do ultimately is to select these three letters. How would you do it? Which tool do we know that allows you to do it so far? The tools we covered so far, which one would be a good fit for this type of selection? The quick mask, not really, because remember, quick mask works on color contrast, hue and saturation. So whenever you go in the quick mask and you click on here, because it's all kind of a pale green after all, it might make quite a mess instead of helping out. So if I go right here and click on the quick mask is actually what you would ultimately potentially do, but let's try with the magic wand. Someone was telling me the magic wand in a different class. It doesn't really do very much, right? Now, quick mask can do, but which tool do you start from? You know, like when you do quick mask, you have to start from a tool. Which one do you think would be most appropriate? Polygonal lasso. That's actually what I would have said, except when you get to the R here, everything is pretty jagged, and then when you go into quick mask, you fine tune it. Now, there is a faster way to go. If you look in this part of these four tools right here in your tool palette, the pen tool, the shape tool, this one generally looks like a rectangle, by the way, the text tool, and the select tool. The pen tool is your best bet, actually. So the pen tool is what allows you to do a pretty much nice job, and in one quick selection you get everything done. So you don't have to go with a polygonal, then fine-tune everything with a quick mask, because these after all are pretty simple straight and curved lines, are very simple. We know how to do those with the pen tool. Now, another thing I want you to know is that last class we covered how to create those shapes in those smart objects demos, right? There was a smart object demo that at the very end you use the vector shapes under the shape option, and you knew that what that does, it creates a shape on top of your layer. So if right now I had the shape tool selected and I go with the pen tool, look what happens in my layers. Click, 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 click. Now, why am I not using that shape tool? You can see it right away, right? Because it blocks part of my letter, and now I don't know how to get back in there. Also, it creates a new layer on top. So what I want to use is a different tool, a better tool in this case, and it's called the path tool. The path tool right here, path tool in the context of the vector, obviously. What I'm creating is a simple path. So instead of generating a layer, I generate something in the path palettes. The path palettes is right here. So notice, if I go with my pen tool, I make sure path is the option, and I make sure that under this option here, I have new layer. Don't have exclude overlapping shape, I have new layer. If I do that and I start clicking, look what happens in the path palette. It creates a new working path. Yes. So another way is if you have the later Photoshop, I think what you need to choose is something that is called combined shapes. fact, let me actually try with combined shape, see if it does the same thing. Either one should do it. So let me delete the path I just got created by just simply clicking with the pen tool. So I'm again in the pen tool, I'm in the path option, and I'm in the combined shape right here, and I'm going to start clicking. Click, 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 click. And you can see that this time, because I'm in that path option, no layers is generated, but indeed a work path is being created. That is great. That's what I wanted. Right? I'm creating a work path right here, and I'm going to close it. Now, what I need to do to make this really be the A is I need to subtract this area, correct? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go in here right now and say subtract. Now, when I do subtract, actually, let me undo it really quick. If you notice right here, up to the point that I was in the combine or in the new layer or new selection in quote, what I created is a thumbnail in the path that had the A in white. Then what does it mean A in white? Included in the path. Not even in the selection yet. We haven't done a selection yet. But it means the A is included in the path and everything else is masked out. In the minute which I switch to subtract right here, it flips the content. Maybe what it's doing right now, not maybe, I know it's doing, is saying the background is selected. The reason why I said maybe is because I'll show you how you flip everything around in a minute. But it's fine. We need to subtract anyway, so we will deal with the fact that right now it flipped the content so that what is really included in the path is the background. What we'll eventually do is invert that, right? So I'm going to go in and create the hole inside the A. And after I'm done with that, the important thing you want to do is do not stay on subtract because it will generate problems if you do. Go back to that combined shape, then go onto your path and command click on that little thumbnail. You see that? We know what command click does, right? We've used it many other times. What does command click do? Loads a selection of whatever that thumbnail has as a content. Now guess what? What is it going to load as a selection? The A or the background? The background, right? Because we used that subtract and made it that what is really white in that path icon is the background. And I told you it's no problem because I'll show you how we can flip that around by doing a command that basically select inverse. That is command shift I is somewhere here. Select inverse right here. It's command shift I. So you can do it as a shortcut or you can do it through the select. But when you do that, now I have my A selected. So I can create a brand new layer. I'm going to pick a really nice bright color like a blue. I don't know if bright, but kind of an interesting blue. And then I'm going to do option delete. Yes, Joe?
How did you turn the shape into a selection?
Let me do it one more time for you. Okay, that's a good question. So let's do it actually 2 more times, right? So I'm going to go with the R. The R is a little bit more complicated. You have to really exercise what we learned in Illustrator in the pen tool. So I'm going to click and click and click. When I get here, I need to click and drag, right, guys? And I need to hold option to render the handle independent. And then I'm going to go in here. I'm going to click and drag. I'm even holding the shift key because that is kind of like a semicircle. Then I'm going to let go. Then I'm going to click and drag right here. Then I'm going to hold option again to do this. You have learned this in Illustrator, so I'm doing it like you know it. Let me know if you don't, and we can go back to Illustrator if you prefer. I'm going to do this, click and drag, and every time I need the handle independence, I kind of render them independent, right, with the option key. We know that. We're pro at it. You guys are really, oops. I made a mistake there. That is no big deal because the pen tool, just like an Illustrator, has an option that makes some, you can convert to a straight, cusp in there or add or subtract anchor points, just like we did in Illustrator. What I'm going to do though, I'm going to use right here the direct selection tool so I can grab this handle and make it a little bit longer. Perfect. So my R is done. And remember, I did it by being on this combined shape option. Now, I need to switch to the subtract because I have the inside of my R to do. And notice what happened in my work path. At the moment, it's telling me that the R is included in the path. But in a minute in which I do subtract, it does the switches. As I said, we learned how to bypass that, so no big deal. So I'm going to go back into my pen tool, and once again, I'm going to click and click, click and drag. I'm going to see if I can just click and drag here and make one anchor point instead of two. Oops, sorry. I needed to click and drag and render independent my handles so that I could do a straight line after that. Done. So now I'm going to answer Joe's question. How do you load this as a selection, right? You do it just like we learned in many other exercises. The best shortcut you'll ever retain in Photoshop is Command-click on the thumbnail. And that means it could be a layer thumbnails if you want to load the content of a layer. It could be a path thumbnail if you load the content of a path. It could be a channel thumbnail if you want to load a priorly saved selection. So you go onto this thumbnail and Command-click. And it loads the R, but not really. If I zoom out, I do Command-0, you see that what is really loading is the background. Because if you look in this little thumbnail of the path, what is really white, means what is present in the path is the background. So then you need to do Command-Shift-I, and that will inverse the selection. So now the R is selected. And then you want to create a brand new layer and do Option-Delete to fill that R. Let me do it one more time with the T. I'm going to zoom in here, go with my pen tool, hit the P tool here, make sure that I am in that combined shapes. And I'm going to click, 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 click. This you could use the Shift key and do all straight lines. I'm actually not, I just realized, but that's all right. In this case, you don't even have to subtract anything, right? So all you have to do in this case is going to be magic because you don't have to do the inverse. You notice that in the thumbnail of the path shows you that the T is the one included in the path. So I Command-click on that thumbnail. It loads my T. I make a brand new layer. Option-Delete to fill it. Command-0. Done. Command-D for deselecting.